In the early morning hours of September 25, 2025, the residents of Kagoshima, a city of 600,000 people living in the shadow of one of the world's most active volcanoes, were awakened not by their alarms, but by a deep, visceral rumble that seemed to emanate from the very core of the earth. Mount Sakurajima, the city's iconic and formidable neighbor, had erupted. This was no ordinary, near-daily puff of steam and ash. This was a volcanic eruption of significant magnitude, an explosive and violent event that announced its presence with a deafening boom that rattled windows and shook buildings across the bay. In the pre-dawn darkness, the summit of the Minamidake crater glowed an infernal red as a column of superheated gas, rock, and ash was blasted thousands of meters into the sky, creating a terrifying and awe-inspiring spectacle. The eruption marked a dramatic escalation in the volcano's recent activity, sending a vast, dark gray ash cloud billowing upwards and outwards, casting a pall over the southern Japanese island of Kyushu and triggering a swift and well-practiced emergency response. The immediate aftermath of the eruption was a sensory assault. The sky above Kagoshima, which should have been lightening with the approaching sunrise, instead grew darker as the colossal ash cloud, propelled by high-altitude winds, began to drift eastward directly over the city. A steady rain of fine, gritty ash began to fall, transforming the vibrant urban landscape into a monochromatic, gray-dusted scene. The air grew thick with the acrid smell of sulfur, and visibility plummeted, forcing drivers to turn on their headlights in the morning gloom. The familiar routines of the city ground to a halt. The city's tram system was suspended as ash coated the tracks and overhead power lines, posing a risk of short circuits. Residents who ventured outside did so with masks covering their faces and umbrellas held aloft to ward off the falling grit. The soundscape of the city changed. The usual morning hustle was replaced by the constant soft crunch of ash underfoot and the scrape of shovels as shopkeepers and homeowners began the Sisyphean task of clearing the accumulating dust from their doorways and sidewalks. The Japan Meteorological Agency, JMA, acted swiftly, issuing a Level 4 volcanic alert, a significant step up from the usual Level 3, urging residents in the immediate vicinity of the volcano, specifically in the Aramura and Furusato districts on the Sakurajima Peninsula, to prepare for immediate evacuation. The warning was clear. This eruption was more powerful than usual, and the risk of larger volcanic bombs being ejected and the potential for pyroclastic flows, fast-moving, superheated currents of gas and rock, was elevated. The impact of the eruption rippled out across the entire Kyushu region, with the ash cloud becoming the primary agent of disruption. The aviation sector was the first to feel its effects. Kagoshima Airport, a key regional hub located northeast of the city, was forced to close. The fine, abrasive volcanic ash poses a severe danger to aircraft, capable of sandblasting cockpit windows, damaging flight surfaces, and, most critically, melting in the heat of jet engines and then solidifying on turbine blades, causing engine failure. The closure led to the cancellation of hundreds of domestic and international flights, stranding thousands of passengers and causing a logistical nightmare for airlines. The Volcanic Ash Advisory Center, VAAC in Tokyo, issued bulletins to air traffic controllers across the region, tracking the dispersal of the ash plume and advising pilots to reroute their flight paths to avoid the vast, drifting cloud. This had a cascading effect, causing delays and cancellations at other major airports in Kyushu, such as Fukuoka and Kumamoto. as airspace was restricted. The economic consequences of this disruption were immediate, affecting not just tourism but also the transport of time-sensitive cargo, such as electronics and agricultural products, for which Kyushu is renowned. Beyond the immediate disruption to transportation and daily life, the eruption posed significant challenges to agriculture and public health. The fertile Osumi Peninsula, to the east of Sakurajima, is a major agricultural region, famous for its tea plantations, sweet potatoes, and the giant Sakurajima daikon radish. The thick blanket of ash that settled over these farmlands threatened to devastate crops. The acidic ash can burn the leaves of delicate plants like tea and contaminate vegetables, rendering them unmarketable. Farmers faced a desperate race against time to either harvest their produce before it was ruined or attempt to wash the ash from their crops, a difficult and often futile task. Washing was particularly problematic because too much water could damage the plants, and even if the ash was removed, the soil remained coated with fine particles that altered its chemical composition, potentially affecting future harvests. Many farmers, already struggling with rising costs and labor shortages, found themselves confronting losses that could take years to recover from. Some cooperatives tried to coordinate responses, pooling resources to protect the most valuable crops, but the scale of the fallout overwhelmed even the most prepared. The health implications were also a major concern. Public health advisories were broadcast repeatedly, urging people, especially children, the elderly, and those with respiratory conditions like asthma, to remain indoors. Volcanic ash is composed of tiny, sharp particles of rock and glass that can cause severe irritation to the eyes, skin, and respiratory tract. Extended exposure can lead to more serious conditions, and the fine particulate matter can penetrate deep into the lungs. Hospitals and clinics in Kagoshima reported an immediate rise in patients with breathing difficulties, sore throats, and eye infections. Pharmacies quickly ran low on masks and protective eyewear, forcing local governments to distribute emergency supplies to residents. School closures became necessary, not only because of the health risks, but also because playgrounds, sports fields, and even classrooms were coated in fine gray dust. Daily life slowed to a crawl as people adjusted to the new reality of constant cleanup, limited outdoor activity, and the uncertainty of how long the ashfall would continue.
Okay, going. Yes!
The sight of residents diligently sweeping and bagging the ash from the streets was not just about aesthetics, it was a crucial public health measure to prevent the ash from being repeatedly stirred up by wind and traffic, prolonging the airborne threat. Municipal workers and volunteers joined together to keep major roads clear, knowing that if transportation ground to a halt, emergency services would be hindered. The collective effort created a sense of solidarity, but also exhaustion, as people were forced to repeat the same laborious cleaning tasks day after day. For some, the constant shoveling of ash became symbolic of their resilience. For others, it was a grim reminder of how powerless they were in the face of nature's forces.
50,000 earthquakes in a month, and so the magma had been gradually rising towards the surface and is now producing a relatively small eruption compared to the last one in Iceland, Hollahurn, in 2014-2015, which was a much bigger event. But this one's close to Reykjavik and a fantastic setting to study.
Economically, the eruption created ripple effects far beyond agriculture. Tourism, a vital industry for Kagoshima, suffered a sudden downturn. Visitors canceled trips, ferry services were suspended, and local businesses reliant on steady tourist traffic faced sharp declines in revenue. The image of a city cloaked in ash deterred many, even though some adventurous travelers were drawn by the spectacle. Airlines also had to cancel or reroute flights, as volcanic ash poses a severe danger to jet engines, grounding planes across Kyushu and disrupting travel throughout Japan and neighboring countries. The financial losses, while difficult to immediately quantify, mounted quickly, reminding residents that the volcano's reach extended well beyond the blast zone.
It's a
energy in it, huh?
So our expectations are that with this topographically confined area, it'll begin to fill up a little bit like a bathtub, and it depends on how long the eruption goes on. But there's just one spillway, and that's over there. So if the eruption continues for a longer period of time...
Culturally, the eruption reinforced the long-standing relationship between the people of Kagoshima and Sakurajima. Generations have lived in the shadow of the volcano, adapting rituals, festivals, and even daily habits around its unpredictable activity. Elders recalled earlier eruptions, telling stories of how their parents and grandparents had survived, rebuilt, and continued life despite repeated setbacks. For many, the September eruption was frightening, but it was also a continuation of history, a reminder of their identity as people who coexist with a living mountain. This perspective offered a measure of psychological resilience, though it did not erase the very real anxieties about safety, livelihood, and the future. The eruption of Mount Sakurajima on that September morning was a powerful reminder of the delicate balance between humanity and the immense geological forces that shape the Japanese archipelago. For the people of Kagoshima and Kyushu, living with the volcano is a fact of life. But this event was a stark demonstration of its capacity to instantly and profoundly disrupt every facet of modern existence. From global air travel to the simple act of breathing, it underscored the vulnerability of human systems, no matter how advanced, in the face of natural forces that operate on scales of power and time beyond human control. Yet in the midst of adversity, it also revealed the strength of community bonds, the ingenuity of farmers and workers, and the resilience of people determined to endure in a land both blessed and threatened by its restless volcano. Appreciate you watching. Drop a like if you found this helpful, subscribe for more, and share it with a friend. Catch you in the next video.